Yes,
All
sir.
right. Please be seated.
Anything before the jury comes? All right, if you bring them back.
All jurors present, Your Honor.
Yeah. And you read that right.
Thank you, Judge. Briefly, Dr. Morgan, when an individual has been in a very high stressful situation, a lack of memory is not an indication of lying, is it?
In my experience, no.
And an incorrect memory from a stressful situation is not necessarily an indication of lying, is it?
Correct. I would agree with you.
And the mind is not like a camera,
That's very true, yes.
and an incomplete video may not give the same impression as a complete video. Isn't that correct?
I would agree with that.
No further questions?
Would remembering sections of an event that are good for you and forgetting sections of an event that were bad for you raise maybe some red flags in a situation where a person had such a motivation to be dishonest?
I don't know.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Yes, that does.
Thank you.
Your next witness.
Just Stevens.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you shall give the court, the jury, and the trial of this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please state your first and last name, and spell your last name loudly and clearly for the microphone.
Joseph Stevens, Stephens.
Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon, sir.
What a deceptive uniform you wear. You were captain with North Charleston Police Department,
I was, sir. I'm recently retired as of October 28th.
and how long were you with North Charleston Police Department?
Total 24 years and 2 months, with 6 months of those being reserve, as a reserve officer.
And how old were you when you started out?
33.
And pretty succinctly, just take us through your career.
Okay. Started out as a patrol officer, City of North Charleston, a reserve officer for, like I said, maybe 6 months, somewhere around there. I was hired full-time. That came to pass because my uncle was a North Charleston police officer, and I did a ride-along with him, and I liked it. And at the time I was turning wrenches, I was a mechanic at a dealership. So I did a ride-along with him, I liked it, and I actually changed from being a mechanic as far as automotive to going into the law enforcement field. If I could just back up a second, because I kind of got in front of myself. I graduated, I was in the United States Army 4 years, and when I got out, I immediately went to Trident Tech for automotive technology. Completed that, and then turned wrenches for a little bit, about 13 years. And saw that wasn't what I wanted to do, and like I say, when I went on the ride along with my uncle, I knew that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a police officer. So I went back for criminal justice, and I graduated. It took me a little bit because I was sporadic in that, but I did get an associate's degree in 2008. So I started off as a patrol officer. I was on the street for 2 years. I worked the South Bureau. At the time, they called it the South Precinct. Worked that for 2 years, and then I was recruited, I guess you could call it, or volunteered for a police community team at the time. It's called SPEED, Selective Police Enforcement to Enhance and Deter. That police enforcement to enhance and deter. To enhance community relations and deter crime. It was a new team at the time. This is back in '95. So I stayed with them for about 4 years. I was fortunate to be promoted to corporal after that, and basically placed in charge of my own team, the PAC team, which was another team at the time, police and community team. I stayed there a couple years, and then I was promoted to sergeant in 2000. Stayed and went back to the speed team as a supervisor, so where I came from, I went back. And then I was temporarily assigned. I was assigned as a liaison between ATF and the North Charleston Police Department for approximately a year. And then I went to a temporary assignment with DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration, for approximately a year with the MET. They called it the MET operation. It's Mobile Enforcement Team. And after that, I came back to the speed team as a sergeant. And this is all under the umbrella of special operations, which I spent a total of 12 years. So bear with me on this. I'm trying to get through. There's a lot of stuff I did. I was fortunate in 24 years. From there, I went to the North Charleston Police Department training section, where I spent a year and a half there before being promoted to lieutenant. And then I was transferred back to special operations as a supervisor, as a lieutenant. Spent two years there at the special enforcement section, which is special operations. That included narcotics, speed team, ATF, DEA task force. I was supervisor over all of them. And then I was transferred in 2006 to the Uniform Patrol Division as a watch commander on day shift. From there, I spent 2 years there, and then I was, again, fortunate enough to be promoted to captain, Uniform Patrol Division. At the time, it was the West Bureau. They called it the West Bureau. Now it's called the North Bureau. And it wasn't geographically, I'm looking for the right word, maybe, I don't know if synchronized is the right word, but it wasn't geographically feasible for us to split our bureaus or districts or areas up the way we had it, so we had to put it where it was North Bureau, Central Bureau, and then South Bureau. But I was there before that. Moved from there, I was at the West Bureau 1 year, moved to the South Bureau, where I started, 10, 12 years earlier. And I was a captain of the South Bureau for three years, which is the Chicora, Cherokee, Dorchester, Wayland Terrace area. So I was a captain over that, and then I was transferred in 2011 to, up until I retired, as Central Bureau Commander, which encompasses the middle part of the city. Shall I go on, sir?
24 years, lots of experience in different locations, different hats you wore, both on the street and with administrative duties.
Yes, sir.
Saw lots of patrolmen, men and women in uniform over the years.
Absolutely.
Had an opportunity to observe them
I did.
at work and also observing their character and whatnot.
Yes.
And Michael Slager, was he one of them?
He was. He worked for me a short time. I can't tell you how many years it was. I was at the South Bureau. He was there at the same time. And the reason why I say that is he was stationed there. I was stationed there 3 years, but he was on midnight shift. I was on the opposing shift, day shift. So the only time we ran into each other was early in the mornings. I've only known him really on a professional level as far as that part was concerned. If his name came across my desk, I don't know anything that would send up red flags or anything during the time. I can't recall anything. Of course, all of any kind of use of force reports or complaints and stuff would come through my desk and stuff like that. But aside from that, it would be, how you doing? Good morning. Everything good? You good to go? And stuff like that. So it was kind of a formal but brief relationship as far as that.
In terms of the use of force, you were somewhere in the chain of command between the officer and the chief?
Between the officer and eventually the chief, of course, but it went officer, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, and then it went to the deputy chief of the division.
When you reviewed those, did you do that earnestly or did you just pencil whip them?
I don't do anything unless it's earnest, sir. That's just how I am. I take everything seriously with my job when I was there because that's what we're called to do. I do everything, I try to do everything. Do I make mistakes? Yes, but I try to do everything with an intent and purpose. So yeah, I don't pencil whip anything. If I see something wrong, I correct it, or I send it back, or I get with the officer, find out what else may have happened that I didn't know about, or something like that. You know, whether it's complaints or use of force, you got to remember now the reports we do are interdepartmentals, and they could include anything from traffic accidents that are not your fault to use of force, stuff like that. So it's a variety of things that can come across my desk.
Do you have any recollection of having to sanction or in any way to counsel Officer Slager?
No, sir.
Ed, in your experience, have you, as a patrolman, have you ever been in a shooting?
Unfortunately, I was in a shooting about a year in the job. Yes, sir.
Tell the jury about that, please.
It was 1994. I was still on the street down south, and an armed robbery went out at a gas station at the corner of Reynolds and Rivers. I got there pretty quick because, you know, the South Bureau area is smaller in size. So I got there pretty quick. I was one of the first ones on scene, and a suspect matching the description ran from me. So of course I chased him, pursued him, and at the time didn't know a lot about what the facts and stuff like that. I just know that there was an armed robbery. He ran, I pursued along with a few other cops. They pursued with me. We chased him, I want to say, I don't know the exact distance, but he went into a house that wasn't his, and instead of covering perimeter, we made the mistake of, we heard glass breakage in the back, so we all ran around back, and we didn't know it at the time, but he tried to go out the window, but there was protector guard there, so he basically put his head into the protector guard. But we made the mistake of everybody going to the back, and when we did, he came out the front. So the foot pursuit continued, and we ended up going down Rexton. I want to say we were on Troy near Success at the time, and then we ran across Reynolds, and we were at Rexton. I can't remember the name of the seafood place, but there's a seafood place that used to be there on Reynolds Avenue. I do remember Reynolds well because I went in the Army there in 1976 at the bus station. So we went down Rexton, and we took a left, and the suspect basically when he turned left, we were still pursuing. And I was the, one of the lead officers, there was two of us that were pursuing the suspect closely. He turned into an empty lot that basically, for lack of a better description, it kind of fenced him in. It wasn't that it was a complete fence in, it was one, the fence was partially up, so it was only one side, but it was keeping him from going anywhere else. So at the time, he pulled out a knife and he said, "I'm not going back to prison and I'm gonna stick you." And I remember those words, but right now we're in what could be called as a standoff, where he wasn't budging. We kept telling him, we're giving him verbal commands, drop the knife, drop the knife, drop the knife. He's not dropping the knife. Of course, my partner, who's on the other side, we basically got him triangulated where the suspect's here, I'm here, and my partner's here. There's a tree right next to me, but I'm not all the way behind it because then I wouldn't be able to see him. But it would be nice if he did have a gun, at least I would have some kind of cover. But I was more worried. The only thing I could actually see from my memories, all I could see was the knife. To this day, which 22 years later, I still can't remember his face. So he had the knife out and he kept saying, "I'm gonna stick you." And he was looking at my partner at the time. And we had our weapons out, and there were quite a few other cops.
Your weapon being your taser?
No, sir, we didn't have tasers back in the 90s. My weapon was my service weapon. It was basically the only weapon we carried back then. We hadn't yet progressed into pepper spray. It was soon after that, though. We used to carry these batons, though, called PR-24s. They looked like the old TV Adam, one Adam 12, where they got out. They were, to be honest with you, they were basically a useless weapon because they were hard to handle during a stressful situation. So typically, we didn't carry them with us. We put them in the car. So he had the knife out. He kept saying over and over, we kept calling him, "No, don't do this, don't do this, drop the knife, drop the knife, drop the knife." And about that time is when he rushed towards my partner. Now, at the time, people were coming because my partner got on the radio and said that we've got a standoff. And other police officers from around the area started coming. So they got behind my partner. So the suspect was here. The suspect had the knife out and he lunged towards where my partner was. And I started shooting my weapon. And during the first part of it, right now, to this day, I still don't remember hearing anything because I don't know why. It's a physiological thing. It's auditory exclusion. I couldn't hear anything, but I could see the flashes of my weapon. And then all of a sudden, I have a stovepipe. And this weapon, I had trouble with it for the whole year I was there. It's basically a failure to extract. So I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I can show you what it looked like to me, because when you're in the middle of a lethal force situations, things happen. And when they happen, you really don't have a lot of time to absorb it, so you've got to act. And it wasn't exactly this size, but it looked like it was sticking out of my weapon like that. So I immediately went to clearing my weapon. Now, you got to keep in mind, this is during the pursuit, the run, the suspect towards my partner. I don't know what the exact dimensions were as far as, it wasn't a big field, it's a lot, an empty lot with a fence on one side. So I cleared the stovepipe, and I didn't know this till afterwards when I found my magazine on the ground, that I had actually replaced I shot it 3 or 4 times, replaced my magazine, which I didn't really have to, because all I had to do was clear the stovepipe and just rack the slide. Does that make sense? I just racking the slide. So I continued to shoot. I do remember my partner, he fell down, something happened. I could just see it as it's going across. The suspect kept running, and I was shooting. I continued to shoot. And at this time, he fell on the ground, which was asphalt, so he's already at the end of the lot. In front of, there's like a few officers behind my partner. So he falls right where the asphalt is, and he's still rolling. And at the time, in my mind's eye, I still saw a threat, and I continued to shoot until he stopped rolling, okay? So I ran up to him. And when I got to him, I was just overcome with anxiety, I guess you could call it. So I vomited. I threw up. And I tried to talk to him, but there was blood everywhere. And I tried to talk to him, ask him what I could do for him and stuff. And I remember something about he was talking in and out. I don't remember from that point to the point I got in the car, except for the fact I went back for my magazine. I found it because someone said, "Whose magazine is this?" And I looked, and it was mine. And I don't remember changing it. But I also don't remember. I remember standing over him when I threw up. I threw up over to the side. But I remember looking down, and I remember him being handcuffed. I just don't remember doing it. But then before I left the scene, someone gave me my handcuffs back. So there was something in there. I didn't know how. I don't know. All I know is I was taught to handcuff suspects no matter what. And I did, I guess. But I didn't know this until until one of the officers gave me my handcuffs before I left the scene. So that was my.
And Mr. Stevens, you
I'm
went
sorry.
on from that night to have a very successful career in law enforcement.
I did. I was out they temporarily assigned me to
But you went on from
book.
that.
Absolutely.
And you got promoted to corporal, sergeant,
I did.
lieutenant, and captain.
Yes.
In the spring of 2015, last year, 18 months ago,
Yes, sir.
were you out of work?
I was out 3 months from January 12th till about, well, actually, I came back the day after, 2 days after this incident.
And did you see the news media reports of this incident?
Yes.
How did that make you feel?
Well, the only thing I had available to me when I first came back was the brief video that they showed on TV.
The objection is sustained.
Once you had an opportunity to further investigate the circumstances of this incident, did you have a change of opinion?
Objection, Your Honor.
Objection sustained.
Were you his captain?
Yes.
And as part of being the captain, did you have to evaluate what happened that day?
SLED was investigating, but of course, my responsibility is to my officers. So the answer is yes.
And as a
I object to this witness's opinion invading the privacy of this jury.
Your Honor, the jury was not his supervisor at the time of this incident.
The objection is sustained.
As a result of your investigation, do you understand what happened that day?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Ever been tased?
Yes, sir. I was a taser instructor.
If the solicitor doesn't object, tell us about your experience as being tased.
Objection
Extremely
sustained.
inappropriate.
Jury is to disregard the improper comment by counsel.
I'm sorry, sir. Could you repeat it?
Be glad to. You ever been tased?
Yes, sir.
How many times have you been tased?
I've been tased probably around 7, but that's not the full 5 seconds. I took 5 different drive stuns to different parts of my body as an instructor. It lends credibility to the weapon or the tool when you're teaching, to let it, so they know what you're telling them about it is true. It's a confidence builder, but I took the 5-second ride first in instructor class in 2004. So I took that 5-second ride, and then in 2006, I did,
Your Honor, I object to this witness's history of tasing. It's cumulative, it's not relevant.
The objection is based on relevance, Mr. Savage.
The tasing you experienced, did it debilitate you?
2 times.
Tell the
I
truth.
could use the word that. The first time was, of course, the 5 seconds that was required back in 2004 for you to be an instructor. You had to be exposed. The second one was a brachial stun that I kind of regret doing it because it didn't end well for me. And that's right here. And I couldn't do anything.
Were you hit with prongs when you got that?
No, that was a drive stun right here. That was without a cartridge.
And what happened to you?
I went all the way to the ground because the instructor actually applied it here, and I couldn't fight it because it felt like the electricity or the voltage was going all the way down my leg, my right leg.
Were you defenseless at that point?
I was.
Now, going back to your observation of, as a captain and lieutenant, sergeant of other law enforcement officers, did you have an opportunity to compare Officer Slager to the other men and women who worked there?
I'm not sure what do you mean by compare?
So how was he as a police officer? What was his reputation among law enforcement for peacefulness and for...
Even keel fellow. Even keeled, mild-mannered. He's a good cop. He was a proactive cop, so he worked.
What about his reputation? Cops talk all the time, right, about each other and all sorts of things. What was his reputation for honesty and truthfulness?
I never heard anyone say anything about him, anything bad.
So the question is, did he have a good reputation for honesty and truthfulness?
Yes.
And if he testified on oath, would you believe him?
Yes.
If he made statements even if he wasn't under oath, would you believe him?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Kindly answer any questions that the prosecutor might have.
How are you?
Fine, ma'am. Thank you.
You met with the prosecution team once before, right?
I did. I'm not sure of all of y'all.
But before you retired.
I remember you, Mr. Durant, and one other guy,
And
Mr. Osborne.
Jeff Osborne, my investigator.
Yes, I remember him.
And you told us the story then about that shooting that you had when you were a rookie. Do you remember telling us the story?
I do.
If it's irrelevant for me, it's got to be irrelevant.
I didn't object to the whole
Excuse me, I made an
story.
objection.
The objection's overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. You told us the story about the shooting, didn't you?
Yes,
The same story that you told for 15 minutes here today, right?
yes,
I mean, more or less.
yes.
And you talked about how the first thing that you did after shooting that fellow was go to him and see what you could do for him.
I went to him, but remember what I said about, I don't know if I handcuffed him, so I can't say that's my first thing.
You
Okay,
were concerned and you wanted to help him,
of course.
of course. And one of the things he wanted you to do was call his grandmama.
I remember something about, can you call my grandmother or something like that,
And I
yes.
believe you mentioned when we talked with Mr. Osborne, that you were so pumped up, you were worried about getting the digits of her phone number right and whether or not you were going to be able to call her for him.
Yeah, I don't remember actually writing it down. I can't remember all that. But you got to remember too, people are different. Everyone's different when it comes to this
They
stuff.
sure are.
You know,
People are very different.
people react differently to stress.
And as we heard just a minute ago from the doctor, stress can bring out who a person really is. You would agree
I
with
don't
that?
know. I don't know that. I didn't hear that.
And you would, when you met with us and you talked about training, because you've been involved with training with North Charleston for many, many years.
Yes.
Objection to the form questions, she's testifying.
Can't testify, Solicitor.
Have you been involved with North Charleston's training for many years?
Yes.
And when you described that to us, you mentioned that you train, or you
Objection,
used
Your
to
Honor.
train in de-escalation.
This moment, yes, sir.
She's testifying.
That's cross-examination, you may overrule.
You mentioned to us de-escalation.
I don't remember that.
You don't recall on September 19th of 2016 mentioning that part of training was to teach de-escalation?
I don't know if I use
Your
that.
Honor, if she's going to do that, she should give them the opportunity to look at her notes that she's testifying from and see if it refreshes his memory.
If he needs his memory refreshed, I'm happy with it.
I don't remember using that word. Maybe you can tell me what we were talking about. Because there may be certain aspects of some training that have some kind of de-escalation in it, but I'm not sure that's what we're talking about.
Well, does some parts of your training have de-escalation included in it?
Some, I would say some, yes.
Okay, that's all. And you mentioned that you didn't know Slager well, Mr. Slager well?
Not on a personal level.
Okay. Y'all didn't hang out
Nope.
after work or anything
No,
like
ma'am.
that? But you do talk to officers and you do know his reputation?
Yes.
Correct. But as far as day-to-day activity, being side by side with him, that wasn't your role?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And you mentioned that, back to this shooting, when you were, the other thing that you did when you approached the man you had shot was throw up.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that's from the running, because we probably ran maybe a quarter to, I don't know if it's a half a mile, somewhere around there, from the stress you get from running, or the fact that I was just overwhelmed with anxiety. I had 1 year on the job. So,
So you hadn't been through as many life experiences or law enforcement experiences as you have now after 24 years?
I hadn't been through many law enforcement experiences.
And when you went through this process, SLED had to investigate your shooting as well. Is that correct? Back in the early 90s, did they do that then?
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you. I just can't remember, because I was whisked away with my sergeant's car.
And you remember that your lawyer back then was Mr. Saxon?
Objection, Your Honor. Rules got to apply on both sides.
Lion.
Your Honor, I object, and I'd like to address the court out of the presence about the solicitor's continuation of corrective. I'd like to address this, put it on the record, out of the presence of the jury.
All right, response, Solicitor.
I'm happy to put anything he'd like to put on the record. My question
All
was,
right.
your attorney at the time was Mr. Savage, is that correct? It goes to this witness's bias.
I overrule the objection, and we'll place matters on the record later today.
He was not my attorney per se. I was with the PBA, and they chose him, I didn't.
And he showed up at the scene that night?
No, he showed up at the station, because
At the station where you were?
correct.
Okay. That's all.
Any further questions?
Stevens, when was the last time you and I had beer?
I don't drink, sir.
When was the last time I had a piece of pizza with you?
No, I haven't, I can't recall a time.
When's the last time I've seen you outside a courtroom, a courthouse, or a police station?
I think I saw you at Park Circle about 3 or 4 months ago, as I was walking around Park Circle.
And said hello.
Yes, sir.
You ever gone bowling together, golf trips together?
No, sir.
Baseball games?
No, sir.
Any social relationship with me at all?
No, sir.
Are you here because I helped you out 22 years ago?
No, sir.
Why are you here?
Because Michael Slager was my cop. He was my patrol officer. And I asked him to go out there every day, put his life on the line. And so I'm responsible for him until I'm not.
Thank you, Mr. Slager.
Yes, sir.
By the state, anything further?
No, sir.
Thank you, you may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The next witness.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you shall give the court and the jury in the trial of this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your first and last name, spell your last name, and affiliate of America.
Charles Benton, B-E-N-T-O-N.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Benton. You work for the North Charleston Police Department.
Yes, sir, I do.
Have I ever represented you?
No, sir.
Why are you here today?
I received a subpoena
From,
from your office.
have you ever worked with the solicitor's office in your business?
Yes, sir, I have.
How many times?
A lot of times.
And so,
Couldn't put a
are you
number on it.
biased to the solicitor's office in your testimony today?
No, sir.
You know Michael Slager?
Yes, sir, I do.
Tell the jury how you know him.
When I was first hired on with the North Charleston Police Department, my first assignment was as a patrol officer on the midnight shift in the south end of the city. And Officer Slager and I worked opposite shifts. I was on Team 1, he was on Team 2. And that meant that we had one shift every week that overlapped, so we would see each other during that shift. After about a little over a year on patrol, I ended up going to the detective division. I was a property crimes detective for just a couple of months, and then a spot opened up in the Special Victims Unit investigating sex crimes and child abuse. I stayed there for several years, and during my tenure as an SVU detective, I ended up receiving a number of cases for which Officer Slager was the initiating officer. He was the first one to respond to the scene of a sexual assault. That was one of his additional duties that was provided to him by his sergeant at the time. And there were reasons for him being assigned those duties, namely that these being sexual assault cases. You're dealing with victims who have been through an extremely traumatic experience. Their emotions are very high. They're extremely stressed. And Officer Slager was recognized by his sergeant as being someone who presented a very calm demeanor and was able to bring those folks back down to a level where he could communicate with them and get an adequate amount of information above and beyond what a lot of other officers were able to get to benefit us when the case came to us in investigations.
Did you have an opportunity to learn his reputation in the law enforcement community?
Yes, sir, I did.
His reputation for diligence?
Yes, sir.
And what was it?
He was known as, both by his sergeant, again, for getting the additional duties of being the one that she would send to sexual assault cases. If Officer Slager was working and they had a sexual assault, she would send him every time to respond to that. As an investigator, the reports that I received from Officer Slager were extremely thorough. He would go so far as to, to make sure that I had not just the names of various witnesses, but accurate contact information for them. I can remember specific cases where he would indicate whether or not video was available that might help in the investigation, whether or not he was able to get the video, and if not, here's the name and contact information for someone who can provide that.
Did you know his reputation in the law enforcement community for peacefulness, thoughtfulness?
I did. He was, again, he was known for being someone who had a very calm demeanor, someone who was level-headed. And what was the last adjective?
Was he known, did you know his reputation for peacefulness and thoroughness and good relations with the community?
I did. There was one specific case that I can recall in which
Not specifically, but just what his reputation was, what other police officers and community members thought of him.
I've had people reach out to me since this event occurred to express their appreciation for Officer Slager, for the way that he handled their case specifically, and wishing him well. I've not heard other officers, when he and I were working together, I never heard anybody speak ill of him. He had a good reputation.
What about his reputation for racial relations?
I never heard anybody make any remarks that he had any sort of racial motivations one way or another.
What about his reputation for truthfulness and honesty?
He's known as an honest officer, a truthful man.
And if he testified under oath, would you believe him?
I would believe Officer Slager if he was under oath or not.
Mr. Benton, Detective Benton, kindly answer any questions the prosecutor might have.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Afternoon, Mr. Beck.
Hi.
Just have one question for you. You said in your experience with Officer Slager, the reports you received from him were very thorough?
Yes,
correct?
sir.
Contained all the details of what happened, correct?
Yes, sir.
Because the details of what happened are actually important to an investigation, correct?
Yes, sir.
And did you have the opportunity to respond to the scene on April the 4th of 2015 for the shooting of Walter Scott?
No, sir.
Did you have any role in the investigation of that case?
No, sir, I did not.
So you don't have any knowledge whether the report, he didn't make any reports to you regarding that case that may or may not have been thorough?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Anything further? All right, thank you. You may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
That's called Christy Prosser. Charity Prosser.
Stand for a moment. Keep the blood flowing. Let's hold it right there, James. Just over here. All righty.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you shall give the court, the jury, and the trial in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please state your first and last name, and spell your last name loudly, clearly, and loud.
Charity Prosser, Prosser. Charity.
Good afternoon, Ms. Prosser.
Good afternoon, sir.
Is it Miss or Detective or Sergeant?
Officer would be fine.
Officer?
Yes,
You're
sir.
not with the North Charleston Police Department?
Not as of July this year.
Have I ever represented you?
No, sir.
Have you ever worked with these people at this desk over here in the solicitor's office?
Not specifically, no.
Are you here under subpoena?
Yes, sir, but voluntarily.
voluntarily under subpoena.
Yes,
So you would have come whether you had a subpoena or not.
absolutely.
Tell us, if you know Michael Slager, how you know him?
I was his supervisor on the south end of the city for approximately 2 years, I believe.
On what shift?
A night shift?
And were you, was he one of the patrolmen working under your direction?
Yes, sir.
And in that capacity, you had an opportunity to observe him,
Yes, sir.
and you had an opportunity to evaluate him.
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to show you some documents, if you need to refresh your memory, about your evaluation of Officer Slager.
Yes, sir.
The patrolmen under your supervision, are they evaluated on a monthly basis?
They get chronologicals put into their employee folder.
All right, we don't know what chronologicals are, nor do we know what an employee folder is, so tell us what that is.
Chronological is sort of a individual incidents that occurred during the month, whether it be positive or negative in reference to the officer's performance. And that each month we complete a sheet. It goes into a file that we use, and it's called the employee file. And at the end of the year, we do a yearly evaluation, and we use those monthly sheets to kind of guide us in the yearly evaluation.
Do you have some of his monthly sheets in front of you?
Yes, sir.
And you also have his yearly evaluations when he was under your supervision.
Yes, sir.
Ed, if you remember, did he ever engage in any foot chases or use of tasers or that sort of thing under your supervision?
Yes, sir.
And do you recall any that may have involved a foot chase and a ground fight?
Yes, sir.
Would you tell the jury about that, please?
Well, at the time we were night shift, as I stated, I heard over the radio Officer Slager asking for assistance. When I arrived on scene, I was not present during the ground fight or the initial arrest. When I arrived on scene, I went and spoke to Officer Slager in reference to the incident. He had explained that during the course of the investigation, the individual had fled. And there was a small pursuit on foot and then a physical engagement.
Do you recall whether he was by himself at that time or not?
He was. I know an officer luckily got to him in enough time to assist him.
Did you have other opportunities to observe his relationship with both suspects and community members?
Yes, sir.
And were those observations recorded on a monthly basis and then converted into his annual report?
Yes, sir.
Did he ever get any negatives? Did he ever get any sanctions or days off, hours off, however you all do it out there, for failure to abide by the policies and procedures?
No, sir.
And you did this for 2 years?
Yes, sir.
Would you read your handwritten notes on the last monthly report?
February? Is that
On the
correct?
front page of the document in front of you.
Dedicated officer, it was an honor to work with you. You're great at working cases where collecting detailed information is essential. Detective work. Continue to motivate your squad, Sergeant Prosser.
And when you say motivate your squad, what did you mean by that? What did he do that motivated his squad?
He was a leader, and you know, a lot of time in police work, most of officers are sort of A personalities, very driven. I would describe him as more humble in the way that he approached mentoring officers. He took them under the wing and would show them, you know, best practices. You know, talk to them if they needed someone to talk to. You know, those qualities are the reason when I had sexual assault cases, he was the #1 officer I sent. Even if he was out on a case currently, I would have dispatch hold that call so I could send him to deal with those cases. He just had a way of speaking to people and making them feel comfortable, even in moments where it's probably your worst moment. But he had a way of just sort of putting people at ease and guiding them.
Did you know his reputation when he worked for you for peacefulness and good order, self-control, self-discipline?
Yes, sir.
What was it?
What exactly?
In other words, did he have a reputation as a hothead?
Oh, no.
Did he
No.
have a reputation as one who would lose his temper?
No.
And you saw him under, and you know he was under the most difficult, strenuous, stressful situations on the midnight shift?
That's often why I sent him. If there were cases I couldn't make as the supervisor, I was the only supervisor on the squad. So if I wasn't able to make it to particular scenes because I was otherwise engaged in something else, he was the officer that I wanted on my squad to go and assist because I knew he had a level head. And I knew that he could get the information relayed back to me and make a decision that was necessary and professional.
And those situations included traffic stops,
Yes, sir.
dealing with drunk people,
Yes, sir.
dealing with people who are mentally impaired,
Yes, sir.
dealing with people involved in domestic disputes,
Yes, sir.
dealing with burglars and armed robbers and street robbers and knife robbers and gun robbers,
Yes, sir.
dealing with drug dealers.
Yes, sir.
You ever have a complaint from anyone about his behavior?
Not that I recall. There were officers that were with him on scene that would get complaints, but I don't ever recall ever getting one for him in particular.
What about his reputation for honesty and integrity?
Brutally honest, even if I didn't want to hear it. I knew that he would tell me what was on his mind. Again, like I said, he was the one officer that I would send out because I knew his decision-making skills were what I needed in order to make the right calls in those moments.
Did you come up from Beaufort today or Bluffton?
Yes, sir.
Why did you do that?
Because I believe in doing the right thing.
Well, kindly answer any questions that the prosecutor may have, and thank you for being here.
Yes, sir.
By the state.
Officer Prosser, you testified that during your time working with Mr. Slager that you relied on him to gather and relay detailed information to you regarding investigations. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And were you his supervisor on April the 4th, 2015?
I don't believe so. I think I was with the STAND program at that
So
time.
you weren't his supervisor the day of this shooting?
No, sir.
So you had no role in that investigation?
No, sir.
Thank you. No more questions.
Thank you.
Anything further? Thank you. You may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
If this court,
Yes, sir.
defense calls Skip Allen.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you shall give the court and the jury in the trial of this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, sir. Please state your first and last name, spell your last name loudly, clearly.
Darrell Allen, D-A-R-R-Y-L-A-L-L-E-N.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Sergeant.
Afternoon, sir.
And that would be sergeant as in United States Air Force sergeant.
Correct.
And how long have you been in the Air Force?
28 years.
And are you currently on active duty?
I am, sir.
Are you currently an active reservist?
True.
Are you on temporary duty?
Yes, sir, I am.
And Sergeant, I can tell from the uniform that you're a member of the Air Force. I can tell that you have or had some type of medical experience from your insignia, and I can tell that you are a flyer in the Air Force. So tell us briefly about why you have that uniform on today and what your military relationship is.
I've been activated to assist active duty for 90 days. And previously in the Air Force, I was in a flying squadron called Air Medical Squadron. Flew missions downrange to recover personnel and bring them back home. Personnel to bring them back home, sorry.
So when you say downrange, that means that you were in Iraq?
Yes, sir.
And you did that as a medical person?
That's
in the Air
correct.
Force, and brought people back to the States, is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
And before you were in the Air Force, did you have any other military experience?
I did. Started out active duty Navy, did 7.5 years there. Made a transition to South Carolina Army National Guard, did 7 years there, and then I made a final transition over to the Air Force.
Good choice. And as you were in the Army and as you were in the Navy, were you also in the medical field?
Yes, sir, I was. I was a Navy corpsman and also a Army medic.
And when you're not at the Air Force and you're not on reserve duty, what do you do?
I'm a police officer for the city of North Charleston.
And how long have you been a police officer for North Charleston?
21 years.
Pardon me?
21 years.
So in that capacity, did you have a knowledge of or a relationship with Michael Slager?
Yes, sir. He used to work for me.
You would tell the jury your experience with Officer Slager.
I took over the South Midnight team back in March of 2014, I believe. And I was working with Michael Slager through September whenever he transferred to another bureau.
And during that time that he was in South under your command, did you have an opportunity to observe him and his relationship with others?
Yes, sir, I did.
Including citizens and suspects,
Yes, sir.
whatnot? And you composed monthly reports?
Correct.
And were those reports then put into an annual review?
They were.
I want to show these documents to you in case you refresh your memory.
Thank you, sir.
In the time period in which Officer Slager was under your supervision, did you assign him any particular sensitive roles?
I did. He was my go-to officer, and we made him the bar officer, which was a liaison from the agency to the bars in the community.
So that kind of bar is not the legal bar, that's the drinking bar.
Correct. Correct.
And why is that sensitive? Why him and why that position, and what's the meaning behind it?
It was based off of his personality. He was the kind of person that could just bridge the gap, communicate, which was an invaluable tool. Mike was able to communicate in such a way that the bar management would communicate when they had large parties and they suspected rival gangs to come there and party. So we could adjust resources to meet that demand.
And Michael was your point guy?
Yes, sir, he was.
And how did he do in that position?
He did an outstanding job.
And what was the feedback you got on him from others regarding his ability to do his job?
He was a go-to person for young officers because of his knowledge, his maturity, so they kind of looked up to him.
And is that reflected in the monthly and annual reports?
Yes, sir, it is.
While he was under your supervision, did he have occasion to fill out reports on the use of force?
Yes, sir.
Did you investigate those?
I did.
Did you pencil whip them?
No, sir. Would you define pencil whip?
Like check off and hand it off to somebody else?
No, sir. That was a thorough investigation at my level, and what we would do is we would, if there was other officers there present, I'd talk to them. That was, it also included review of the in-car camera footage and also the body cam footage, which came after Slager's.
So when you do a review of the use of force, it's not just sitting in an office and checking off squares?
No, sir. I do my investigation. It gets sent up the chain of command.
You also go out and talk to the people who were there at the time?
Correct.
And in your review of, did Officer Slager, under your supervision, file use of force reports?
Yes, sir, yes.
And did you thoroughly investigate them?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever find that he was acting outside the parameters of the policies and procedure of the North Charleston Police Department?
I never observed that, sir.
As his supervisor, did you have an opportunity to observe his interaction with the public?
Correct.
Did you ever have any concern about any racial animus or any discriminatory practices on his part?
Just the opposite. He was praised in the community.
And did you have an opportunity to observe his work ethic?
Yes, sir, I did.
And what was that?
He was a timely person. He was a stickler, kept his car immaculate, which is unusual for a police car, but Michael was one of those guys who took pride in the way he looked and in the area that he worked in.
Did you have an opportunity to observe his demeanor?
Yes, sir.
With fellow officers and with citizens?
Always level-headed.
And did you have an opportunity to learn of his reputation for peacefulness?
Yes.
And what was it?
He was just a cool-headed person.
Did you have an opportunity to learn of his reputation for honesty?
Yes, sir.
Truthfulness, for integrity?
I observed his courtroom testimony. It was reflective to the reports that he would file.
Would you kindly answer any questions, Sergeant? Thank you for being here. Thank you for your service to the
Yes, sir.
country. And kindly answer any questions that you possibly might have.
Certainly.
By the state.
Next question.
You were his sergeant for how long?
Roughly 6 months.
Okay. And how many interdepartmental reports about the use of force have you reviewed and attended? Not just, I'm not talking Mr. Slager, I'm talking about.
In general,
Yes, sir.
there's lots.
Lots.
Yes, sir.
And how many of them have you flagged?
Several.
Can you give me an example?
Yes, sir. There was an incident involved where officers got into a fight and they didn't document everything that had happened. I observed it on the in-car camera footage. And there was other incidents where officers were in pursuit, wrecked their cars, and I do a field form on that because it was damage to city property.
But those are officers fighting with themselves or officers getting wrecks, right?
Among themselves?
Didn't you say the officers were fighting?
Yeah, sometimes you get into a situation where someone doesn't want to go to jail and it will resist arrest.
Okay. And so your testimony basically is you don't red flag. You don't pass everyone who goes by.
If I see a violation of policy, I'm going to document it, because that will eventually reflect on me.
Okay. And if that includes a situation where two officers are holding down a subject and a third officer has a backup so he can tase them, is that in policy, gentlemen?
I'm sorry, say that again, please?
When two officers are holding down a subject face down on the asphalt, each one having one arm, and the third officer says, back up so I can tase him, so the other officers get up and he tases him in his back, is that within policy?
If the subject is resisting arrest and they're not able to apply handcuffs, I would say yes, that's in policy.
Because you proved that in Officer Slager's case, correct?
Which case are you referring to?
That case I just described.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything further? Thank you. You may step down. Your next witness.
Happiest moment, 5 weeks, defense rests.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the defense's case. Need to have you go to the jury room for a few minutes, and we'll bring you back without too much delay. Please do not discuss the case. Everyone be seated. Any matters of law at this time? By the state.
Yes, sir.
By the defense. Yes, sir.
Your Honor, may we have the evening recess to consider how in depth we want to go on our motion for the verdict.
Okay.
I don't have time to belabor it, but we're trying to cut to the chase.
Excuse me. Any reply anticipated by the state?
Judge, I'm not sure, a couple of things that we have outstanding could affect that. I believe Mr. McCune and I, and Mr. Savage and I are able to come to an agreement on State's Exhibits 253, which is the digital photographs that we would like to introduce. We have to work out an agreement also on the Licio screenshots. If we, for some reason, we're not going to reach an agreement in the next little while, we may have to call a witness to do that. The other thing, Your Honor, is we filed a motion with the court some time ago regarding the timeline of Bill Williams that was played for the jury and has been referred to since. We believe, as we cited in our motion, that timeline should come in and should be viewable and heard by the jury for their deliberations. It's the only place where there is a string of audio coupled with the crime scene information that the jury can conveniently view what happened and the chronology that it happened in. And it's critical for the jury to understand that. I think it's critical for both sides. Nothing in that timeline that we presented has been attacked or disputed by the defense. So in that respect, we don't think that it is prejudicial. I think it's, depending on who's arguing, it could be favorable to either side.
All right. When you have the jury come in, I'm going to let them go for the evening, and then I'll continue to listen to whatever you all want to say.
Judge, one more thing on the jury view.
Yes, sir.
In light of the time that the jury has spent here, we believe that it may be appropriate to the foreman to determine whether the jury would, rather than force them into a view, to find if that would be important to their deliberation to go forward from this.
I want the jury to decide whether they want a jury view.
Your Honor, we think it would be important to them, but if it's not important to them, they have been subjected to a whole lot of stuff up to this point. And I just think that they know enough about the case now to understand whether that would inform their decision.
All right. Mr. Says the state.
Your Honor, I think that would be a huge mistake to ask this jury to basically start deliberating and making that sort of decision before they have the arguments and the instruction of the court. We've expressed our concern about a jury view, especially since the passage of time
Rather than have you all wait while we discuss matters, we're going to have you all leave for the day and to be back at 9 tomorrow morning. Please do not discuss the case. Have a good evening. 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. The statute in question regarding jury view is 14-7-13-20. The jury in any case may, at the request of either party, be taken to view the place or premises in question or any property, matter, or thing related to the controversy between the parties when it appears to the court that such a view is necessary to a just decision. If the party making the motion advances a sum sufficient to pay the actual expenses of the jury and the officers who attend them in taking the view, which shall be afterwards taxed like other legal costs if the party who advances them prevails in the suit. So that's a statute that has a civil-sounding tone in nature, particularly the taxing of costs, because the court would not impose cost on anyone to have a jury view other than the county. The statute says the court may, it doesn't say the jury may decide. So that's not an option to have a jury decide. Yes, sir.
Judge, if, and we would defer to the court's judgment, we think it would be valuable to the jury. We don't want to waste the jury's time, we don't want to waste the court's time. The solicitor is correct in that some things have changed out there, but the basic scene is the same. The distances traveled and the view of the scene itself, I think would be relevant to the jury's decision.
All right, and Solicitor, you were talking.
Yes, sir. I was just, again, as I said when we discussed this last time, in my experience since forever, this jury has more information, more video, more still photography, more 3D images of the scene than any jury that I've certainly dealt with, or that I believe has been in this courtroom. I'm concerned because of the change in the appearance of the place. I'm concerned because of
There is a barbed wire fence
there are a couple of
where
fences
it wasn't there before.
where Baden Santana would have been, and I think his view is an issue in this case, and his opportunity to observe, that's going to be completely different. I am concerned about what exactly we define as the scene, what route is taken. Are we talking about just the Yellow Brick Road? Are we talking about advanced auto parts? Are we talking about Baden Santana's route that he took? And the area where he was when he observed what he saw, and I think it's going to be misleading for the jury especially if they take his route, to not be able to see what he saw because of the change in the fence line. And it's much, much different now. You heard testimony from Bill Williams about that. And again, this jury has ample information. I think the fact that the defense was even willing to defer to the jury is evidence enough that it's just not necessary in this case.
Yes, sir. Mr. Kim, what do you think?
Yes, sir. Judge, I don't think there's a chance for confusion of the jury. Actually, what was introduced by the prosecutor into evidence, a lot of those photos were taken after that other fence went up. If someone wants to get the viewpoint of Mr. Santana, they can be on the inside part of the fence as well as the outside part of the fence. And there's no difference there. It's not that the fence would be blocking view. And we do think it's important that the route be traveled from Advance Auto Parts down to the Yellow Brick Road and to the extent possible from 2 telephone poles back on Craig up to there so that they can judge the credibility of the story they've heard from various witnesses. And they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, but a view is like something that you won't ever get because any question about the perspective of video or any of that stuff goes away. It's where the event actually took place. I think the jury would benefit from having a look at that and having a look at the distance of the chase to the final event.
Of course, we have 2 videos, don't we? Video of the stop of Mr. Scott and a video by Mr. Santana.
That's correct, Your Honor. The video of the car stop was taken from a static video camera in Officer Slager's car in the Advance Auto Parts parking lot, which is where this event took place. From there, it was down Craig Road, and then a right-hand turn onto the Yellow Brick Road, and at some point along there was another video. This was a cell phone video by a bystander without, it wasn't very clear in parts and with trees and other objects in the way. So I think it would be worthwhile for the jury to take a look at what the parties were themselves, dimensions of what they were facing into.
Yeah. Well, I said I'm not adverse to having jury views, but the more I think of it, I mean, we have this statute, I believe, was passed as part of in the code section, at least, from 1962, and was previously codified in 1942. Certainly, when there were no videos of things, and perhaps the jury view was the only thing that, or the best that we could get. But in this instance, we have the have videos as well as Faro scans and other things that are can give the jury a much better view than they otherwise would have been able to get when the statute was passed. So, I'm backtracking in my own mind as to the necessity, as I see you all not arguing as fervently for it.
Your Honor, please don't mistake my desire to make sure that the jury is not abused with my desire to make sure that we get a fair shot at this. The portion of the chase down Craig Road was not videoed, it was animated by Mr. Williams in his timeline, so they haven't seen that. And I don't know whether the court has perhaps indulged in video dating or a video conference or something like that. They're being at the scene is different than observing it on video, and I think it's just a fundamentally different thing. The technology is great, but it's not the reality.
Yeah. Well, the key phrase in the statute is necessary if it's necessary for a just decision, and we got to hang on on that phrase, whether it's necessary for a just decision. So we'll marinate on it one more night. How about that?
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. All right. Back to your timeline argument.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Your Honor, again, the purpose for the timeline, which I don't believe has been disputed at all. In fact, Grant Fredericks, who was the defense expert, agreed that he and Bill Williams synced all of the recordings the same. One used the voiceover in the dash cam or the dispatch time. The other used the time from the dash cams. But in linear time and stopwatch time, they both agreed that that the way that these things were synced using different audio cues, different video cues, that they were in time together. So that's not in conflict. Without the timeline in evidence and available for this jury, they will have to shuffle between dash cam video, Santana video, the photographs from the scene, the real-time audio dispatch, and it is going to be a tremendous task for them. I don't believe that the timeline that we introduced for the time being for demonstrative purposes, and as we cited in our memo, some items that are demonstrative can go to the jury. And that's what we're asking the court to do, to allow that to go.
I don't allow anything that's demonstrative to go to the jury unless it's admitted into evidence.
We offered it into evidence.
All right, so it no longer would be demonstrative at that point. It would be in evidence. And that's the point you're at. You're trying to get it in evidence. And
Right. I don't believe there are any issues as to authenticity or any of that. It's just a matter of whether or not the court will allow the jury to use it for their deliberations. And again, it is one succinct place for this jury to have all of those recordings in line, in linear time, coupled with the view of the area. We think it's critical for this jury, we think it's critical for our case, and we do not believe that any matters of controversy or prejudice to the defense are contained within the timeline.
all right. What says the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. As you recall, the timeline has an animation in the front, which by the admission of Mr. Williams was just a guesstimate of where people might be along the road. He took a distance, divided it up, and then put figures running like this. Not sure that that's real helpful to the jury. As you will recall, too, there is the defense, the state's interpretation of what was said at certain places along the way that are highlighted on the video. We requested the opportunity to do the same thing. We were denied that. Additionally, we have a video outstanding that has not been admitted into evidence that contains essentially the same information that the state's does. It doesn't have the picture of the taser, but the word taser activates when the taser is activated. So we do think there are some things in there that are in dispute, and
Such as?
well, the transcription, the depiction of the foot chase up until the point where the Santana video comes in, and the dash cam is no longer in view. That was merely an animation. It's a guess. It's not reality. and to the point that the jury has it admitted as evidence, and they think it's reality, it's just not. And it was by Mr. Williams' own admission, just, that looks about right. We think that was about it.
Anything else on that
Yes,
issue?
Your Honor, if I may, of course, indulge just 1 second, I'm trying to pull up my memo so I can correctly cite the case, that although in that case, the court did not approve the use of demonstrative evidence going to the jury because it didn't fit with the testimony. In our case, again, the key points do fit with the testimony, and I believe it's the Clark case talks about how it doesn't have to be exact in every detail. It has to be fair and accurate. And
That's a test for admissibility of the testimony, not for an admissibility of an item into evidence. This witness's trouble was getting qualified as an expert in his testimony being admitted. And so the test for the admissibility of his testimony and the use of it for demonstrative purposes was that it does not have to be exact. It could be based on an estimate. But as an item of evidence, that's another question.
Well, Your Honor, it's much like a photograph where we lay a foundation.
Yeah.
That a photograph is a fair and accurate depiction of this, that, or the other. Again, the issues regarding Mr. Williams and his qualifications, that had to do with video enhancement. What we're talking about now is the timeline, which was not video enhancement. It was the placing the recordings in a linear fashion, which Mr. Fredericks also did, and they match up.
I don't see admitting either timelines in this case. I said earlier I'm not inclined to allow it. The fact that one's version may seem to one party to be beneficial versus another person's proposed timeline. You have the additional concern of it being cumulative in the sense of, or being a summary of the testimony, and the jury has heard the testimony. And, I'll consider it again overnight, but I wouldn't bank on that being something that's coming in evidence.
Your Honor, I assume, even despite your ruling, if you stick with that ruling, that because it has been viewed by the jury and it is demonstrative, that we can use it and refer to it in closing as argument.
You can use demonstrative evidence. It's still demonstrative throughout the entire trial. But to say that the state wants its evidence packaged for the convenience of the jury, and that, in effect, is a summary of the witness's testimony is not something that's typically proper to go to the jury. And the jurors are, I think, a lot smarter than we give them credit for in many instances.
Yes, sir.
And running computers and everything else.
Yes, sir. Again, my concern is the multiple sources. I know how long it's taken us, I know how long it's taken the defense to get these things lined up.
You object to theirs, they object to yours.
Well, they object to ours on the grounds, one, that the animation is not accurate as to what happened in the foot chase. Again, the cases that we cited in our memo talk about how it doesn't have to be exact in every detail for the jury to get to use it in their deliberations. As far as...
I don't know that the case says that, but you can, and that's been a few weeks back, so you can...
Yes, sir.
You can, and you can't find it, and it's late today, and you find something you want me to look at, send it to me.
I'll do that, Your Honor. And that may affect whether or not we have a reply witness in the morning.
All right.
And I believe also, I assume we're not doing a charge conference this afternoon, or are we?
I think we should,
Okay. I was gonna say,
unless you're all just worn out. But if closing arguments are tomorrow, you need to have an idea.
But I'm very concerned about the state of our law and what the law is going to be charged with this jury, and especially being that we open on the law, or plan to open on the law. I need to know what the law
We can
is.
take a break of 20 minutes or so and let everyone catch the breath, or
Okay.
whatever you want to do, and then, or half an hour, whatever.
Okay. I think 15, 20 minutes is fine.
All right.
Now you have to find that other remote.
What says the defense? You want to talk about it today, or you want to talk about it
Judge,
tomorrow?
as much as I want to find out what the state of law is too, I'd actually rather talk about it tomorrow. If we could do that early on in the morning, just because it's a very critical part.
Such
of
as
the
9
trial.
o'clock?
It's 9 o'clock, if you find, Judge.
It's kind of tough to prepare your argument to the jury without having some time to think about what you'd be able to argue. So that's it doesn't matter to me.
I'm going to need more than 15 or 20 minutes tomorrow, if we were to do it tomorrow, to get prepared to make the argument about the law. So if we do it tonight, that's great. If not, I'm going to need a break in the morning, and I hope the court will indulge me, because this is a pretty complicated area of the law that is treacherous, I think.
I don't think it's so complicated.
Well, I can't wait to hear what you think.
Not in this state.
And Judge, I think if we have a,
Maybe you see it more like we do.
if we could have a closing arguments Thursday morning, get it to the jury Thursday, because I don't know how long the charge conference is going to take, Judge. That's one of the reasons I'm hesitant to do it tonight. We want to make sure that we get this out fully vetted and on the record, because as the court has noted, the court has maybe a differing view from the other side.
Yeah, well, you submitted your request in writing. It doesn't automatically entitle you to a day-long argument on the issue. So
Your Honor, that is...
the rule says you must submit it in writing, which you've done, so.
Your Honor, I would rather put sharp sticks in my eyes and have a day-long argument on the jury charges, but I do believe that tonight would not be the night to do that,
Right.
given the day that we've had.
Could we ask the jury, at the risk of the ire of the clerk's office, could we ask the jury to come in at, say, 11:30 or noon?
No, they're coming at 9 tomorrow. I've told them already to come at 9. Yeah, we're not going to call them to tell them to come
Okay.
later.
Then I propose that we move forward tonight.
We're going to recess for about a half an hour, give everyone 10 after 6. Is that a half an hour, thereabouts? We're going to then talk about it.